Hi, Reddit. My name is Jessica. I'm 35. My now ex-husband Kyle is 37. We were together for 14 years, married for 10. We have 2 kids. Sophie, 8, and Ethan, 6. We live in a suburb of Denver, Colorado. Kyle is a partner at a small but very profitable law firm that specializes in mergers and acquisitions. I'm a registered nurse, but for the last 5 years I've worked as an administrator at a private clinic because it gave me a flexible schedule and let me pick up the kids from school. Kyle was always that guy. Tall, dark hair, blue eyes, a charming smile. He could convince anyone of anything. Our friends called him the golden boy. I was proud of that. I thought I was lucky. It all started to fall apart about 2.5 years ago. I noticed Kyle started working late. First it was once a week. Then 3 times a week. Then he started leaving for business trips on weekends. When I asked what was going on, he said, "Big project, merger of 2 tech companies, need to fly to San Francisco." I'm not a jealous person by nature. My mom was pathologically jealous. She'd have screaming fights with my dad over every little delay at work, and eventually he left her. So I swore I'd never be like that. I took Kyle at his word. That was my first mistake. The first crack appeared when I found a receipt in his pocket from a jewelry store for $4,000. It wasn't just any receipt, it was a receipt for watch repair. An expensive watch, an Omega. I knew Kyle had that watch. It was a gift from his father for his 30th birthday. But the receipt was made out to Melissa Stone. I asked him, "Who is Melissa Stone?" He didn't even blink. He said, "Oh, she's the wife of a client. I gave her my watch because she lost hers and we were at a lunch, and I wanted to be gentlemanly. She gave it back the next day." It sounded plausible. Gentlemanly Kyle was in character. I decided it didn't mean anything. The second crack was more serious. We were at his firm's Christmas party. Lots of people, alcohol flowing. A woman named Stacy came up to me. She was the wife of one of the junior partners. She was a little drunk. She said, "Jessica, you're so beautiful. Kyle is lucky. You know, I always told my husband that if I were a man, I'd have an affair with your husband. He's so charismatic." I laughed it off and thought she was just a drunk fool. But then she added, "Just be careful with blondes. He seems to like them." And she walked away. I didn't think anything of it at the time. Big mistake. The third crack was the biggest. Kyle started acting strange with my best friend. Her name was Brittany. We'd been friends since college. 16 years of friendship. Brittany was my maid of honor at my wedding. She was Sophie's godmother. She was the one I shared all my secrets with. Brittany was married to a guy named Derek, and they had 1 child, a 5-year-old daughter. I noticed that Kyle and Brittany were texting a lot. I'd see notifications on his phone when he got out of the shower. "Hey handsome," or "Miss our conversation." I asked him about it. He said, "Oh, Brittany is just asking my advice about her divorce. She and Derek are splitting up, you know. She doesn't want you to know because she's afraid you'll pity her. I'm just supporting her as a friend." I believed him, because Brittany really was splitting up with Derek. They were divorcing after 7 years of marriage. Derek had cheated on her with some girl from the gym. I was on her side. I even let her stay with us for 2 weeks while she looked for an apartment. And you know what? During that period, Kyle was perfect. He was attentive to her, but also attentive to me. He made breakfast, played with the kids. I thought, what a wonderful husband I have, supporting my best friend in her time of need. Idiot. Eventually Brittany moved out. Kyle and I were alone again. I thought life was getting back to normal. But the sex between us practically disappeared. We used to do it 2 to 3 times a week. Then it became once every 2 weeks. Then once a month. When I initiated, he'd say, "I'm tired, honey, this project is draining me." I suggested seeing a sex therapist. He laughed and said it was stupid. I started to suspect he had someone else. But I didn't know who. In my head, I had a list of suspects. Some colleague, maybe that Melissa Stone, maybe some woman from the gym. But Brittany wasn't on that list. She was my sister in spirit. She couldn't. How did I start gathering evidence? I decided to act like a nurse. Systematically, coldly, without emotion. I bought a voice recorder with 100 hours of capacity. I hid it in Kyle's car under the driver's seat. That's illegal in Colorado? Yes. But I didn't care. I wanted the truth. The first 3 days of recordings were boring. He listened to legal podcasts, talked to colleagues on the phone, argued with someone about a contract. On the fourth day, I heard something interesting. He was talking to someone he called baby. The voice was female, but the recording wasn't super clear. He said, "I'll be there soon. Jessica thinks I'm at a client meeting. Buy some wine." And the female voice replied, "Buy that red wine we had last time. And get some cheese. And, I missed you." Kyle laughed and said, "I missed you too. Your tits. I can't wait." My blood ran cold, but I didn't recognize the voice. It was muffled. I thought, okay, this is progress. Now I know for sure he has someone. I need to find out who. I went to a private investigator. His name was Vincent. He was a former cop, now working for himself. He took a $5,000 retainer. I paid from my savings, which I'd been putting aside for a new car. Vincent said, "Jessica, are you sure? Because once I start, there's no going back. You'll find out things you might not want to know." I said, "Vincent, I'm a nurse. I've watched people die of cancer that wasn't caught in time. Infidelity is the cancer of marriage. I want to know the stage." He started surveillance. 2 weeks later, I had a mountain of evidence. Vincent found out that Kyle regularly, 3 to 4 times a week, after work, didn't come home but went to an apartment in downtown Denver. The apartment was in a modern complex called Midway Towers. He'd arrive around 6 p.m. and leave around 10 o'clock to 11 p.m. Sometimes he'd stay overnight, telling me he was with a client or had gone to another city. Vincent took photos. They showed Kyle leaving the apartment, adjusting his tie, and a woman seeing him off. The woman was in a robe, with wet hair, clearly just out of the shower. I zoomed in on the photo. And my heart stopped. It was Brittany, my best friend, my daughter's godmother, the woman who cried on my shoulder when her husband cheated on her. The woman who swore that men were trash, and that we girls had to stick together. She was hugging my husband around the waist and kissing his cheek. Not as a friend, as a lover. I stared at those photos for 3 hours. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat in the kitchen, drinking cold coffee, staring. My cat Molly jumped on my lap, and I petted her. I felt like a robot. My emotions had turned off. Survival mode kicked in. I called Vincent and said, "I need more. I need to know how long this has been going on, if they have joint accounts, and most importantly, who else knows about this." Vincent said it would take another week and cost an extra $3,000. I transferred the money. A week later, I had a 40-page report. It turned out that Kyle and Brittany's affair had been going on for 2 years. 2 years. It started when Brittany was still married to Derek. So she was cheating on her husband with my husband, and then crying to me that Derek was cheating on her. Was that projection? Or did she just want my pity? But that wasn't all. Vincent found out that Brittany wasn't the only one. Kyle had at least 2 other lovers in the last 3 years. One was a woman named Vanessa, 29, who worked as a secretary at his own law firm. The second was a girl named Haley, 24, a fitness trainer at the gym Kyle went to. But Brittany was the main one. She was the one he was planning a future with. Vincent intercepted their messages, through a hacked cloud account, also illegal, but Vincent was a pro. In the messages, they discussed how they would leave me and Derek. They planned that Kyle would file for divorce from me, take the kids, because he had more money and was a lawyer, and I was just a nurse, and Brittany would marry him. They were even picking a wedding date, June of the following year. My daughter's name, Sophie, was supposed to be the name of their future daughter, because Brittany always loved that name. I read that, and I threw up. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. Then I sat on the bathroom floor and cried for the first time. I cried so hard my throat hurt. I wasn't crying so much over Kyle, but over Brittany. How could you betray someone who had been your family for 16 years? Who supported you when your mother died? Who gave you $5,000 for your dog's surgery? Who was there when you had a miscarriage at 5 months? I decided they didn't deserve a quick, easy revenge. They deserved to have their lives turned into hell. Slowly, systematically, irreversibly. I didn't file for divorce right away. That would have been too easy. Kyle was a lawyer, he would have hired the best attorneys, he would have weaseled his way out, he might have even gotten custody of the kids because he had resources. I had to strip him of his resources. I divided my plan into 4 phases. Each phase lasted several months. Phase 1. Financial isolation. Kyle made about $250,000 a year. I made about $60,000. We had a joint bank account where his money went, and my separate account where mine went. I also had access to his credit cards. But that wasn't the main thing. The main thing was his investments. Kyle had a brokerage account with $400,000 that he'd opened before the marriage, but he'd added to it during the marriage. Under Colorado law, the capital gains during the marriage are considered marital property. I started by hiring an accountant named Martha. Martha was a 60-year-old woman with nerves of steel and experience working for the FBI. She agreed to help me for 10% of whatever we saved or recovered. Martha analyzed all of Kyle's expenses over the last 3 years. She found that he had spent about $75,000 on his lovers. Hotels, restaurants, gifts, Brittany's apartment, yes, he was paying for her apartment, $2,500 a month, for 18 months. That money was taken from the joint account. So essentially, he had stolen $75,000 from the family. Martha said, in Colorado, there's a law about dissipation of marital assets. You can claim compensation, but you need to prove that these expenses were not for the family. I had the proof. Photos, receipts, Vincent's testimony. I didn't file a claim right away. I just put everything in a folder. Next, the most interesting part. Kyle was working on a big deal at his firm. If the deal went through, he'd get a bonus of $200,000. That couldn't be allowed to happen. I couldn't sabotage the deal directly, but I could create circumstances. Kyle had a partner named Mark. Mark was married to a woman named Lisa. Lisa was a friend of mine, not as close as Brittany, but we talked often. I told Lisa everything, not the whole story, but enough so that she knew Kyle was cheating. Lisa, in turn, told Mark. Mark was a conservative guy who considered cheating taboo. He started to doubt Kyle's business ethics. In the end, Mark voted against Kyle being the lead lawyer on that deal. The deal was given to another partner. Kyle got no bonus. He came home furious. He yelled at me, "Did you say something to Mark? Did you tell Lisa about us?" I put on a surprised face and said, "Kyle, I don't know anything about you and Mark. Lisa and I were talking about preschools. You're paranoid." He didn't believe me, but he couldn't prove anything. Brittany worked at a small event planning company. She had a boss named Kevin. Kevin was married but known for having affairs at work. I anonymously sent Kevin's wife a letter saying that Kevin was cheating on her with an employee. I didn't name Brittany. I just said, "Your husband is cheating on you with a female employee who recently divorced and has a child." Kevin's wife caused a huge scene. Kevin, to save his marriage, fired all the female employees who had recently divorced. Brittany was laid off. She lost her job. Brittany was in a panic. She called me. Yes, she still called me. We were still in touch because I didn't let on that I knew. She cried into the phone, "Jessica, I got fired. It's so unfair. What am I going to do? I have a daughter, Derek's child support is tiny." I said in a sweet voice, "Oh, you poor thing, I feel so sorry for you. Maybe Kyle can help you? He has so many connections." She said, "Yeah, I already talked to him. He promised to figure something out." Kyle did try to get Brittany a job at one of his clients' firms. But I made sure that didn't happen. I anonymously called the HR director of that firm and said that Brittany had been fired for having an affair with her boss and that she had a drinking problem. That was a lie, but no one bothered to check. She was rejected. Brittany was unemployed for 6 months. She started draining money from Kyle. He gave it to her, but it depleted his resources. He started borrowing from friends. That hurt his reputation. Brittany's apartment, which Kyle was paying for, was in a building owned by an investment company. I found the owner. I posed as an anonymous informant and said that the apartment was unsanitary and that the tenant, Brittany, was violating fire safety rules by storing flammable materials. I sent a fake letter from neighbors complaining about noise and parties. The management company did an inspection. They didn't find any violations, but Brittany caused a scene and yelled at the inspectors. She got a warning. A month later, I organized another complaint, this time, that she had a large dog living in the apartment, even though pets were prohibited. Brittany didn't have a dog. But someone, me, left dog feces at the neighbors' doors and filed a complaint in their name. The neighbors were furious. They demanded Brittany be evicted. In the end, Brittany was evicted. She moved to a cheap apartment in a bad neighborhood. Kyle was furious, but he couldn't do anything because the apartment was in Brittany's name, not his. This was the riskiest part. Kyle was a lawyer. To get his license suspended, I needed to prove he violated professional ethics. I found a way. It turned out that Kyle had handled a divorce case for one of his clients. The client was a wealthy man who wanted to hide some assets from his wife. Kyle helped him do it. That was illegal. I found out about it from his email, which I gained access to. Yes, I know it's illegal, but Vincent helped me get secure access. I anonymously sent this information to the Colorado Bar Association. I did it through a burner email that I used only once. I attached screenshots of the emails. The Bar Association launched an investigation. Kyle was called to a disciplinary hearing. He didn't know who had ratted him out. He suspected his partner Mark. Mark denied it. A war broke out between them. Kyle spent $30,000 on a lawyer to defend him at the hearing. In the end, he wasn't disbarred, but he received a severe reprimand and a 6-month suspension of his practice. No practice, no money. He took out a loan to live on. $50,000 at a high interest rate. Now he had no money for Brittany. Brittany started fighting with him. I knew this because Vincent kept up surveillance. One night, Brittany came to our family's driveway and screamed at Kyle in his car. I heard it from my bedroom window. She yelled, "You promised me a life. And now you have nothing. You can't even pay my rent. You're a pathetic loser." He yelled back, "I'll fix it. Give me time." She said, "There is no time. I found someone else." And she left. Brittany dumped Kyle. Kyle came back into the house. He looked like he'd been hit by a truck. He sat on the couch and cried. I sat across from him and watched. He said, "Jessica, I messed up. I love you. I want to fix this. Let's go to a therapist." I said, "Kyle, you want to fix it? Okay, tell me everything. No hiding." And he told me. He told me about Brittany, about Vanessa, about Haley. He cried and said it was a mistake, that he was weak, that he didn't appreciate me. I listened to him for 2 hours. I recorded everything on a voice recorder in my robe pocket. When he finished, I stood up, took out the recorder, and put it on the table. I said, "Thank you for the confession, Kyle. Now I have everything I need for the divorce." He went pale. He tried to grab the recorder, but I was faster. I said, "Don't. I have copies in 3 different places. If you touch me or the kids, I'll send this to your bar association, and you'll lose your license for good." He fell to his knees. He begged me not to ruin his life. He said the kids needed him, that he was a good father. I said, "Good fathers don't spend family money on whores. Good fathers don't plan to steal their kids from their mother. You're trash, Kyle, and I'm taking you out." I filed for divorce the next day. The divorce lasted 8 months. It was hell. Kyle hired the most aggressive lawyer in town, a woman named Pamela. Pamela tried to portray me as a crazy, jealous woman who had destroyed the marriage herself. But I had the evidence. The judge was a 55-year-old man, a conservative, a former military officer. He didn't like that Kyle had spent family money on lovers. He didn't like that Kyle had planned to take custody from me. He really didn't like that Kyle had used his position to hide assets. The judge ruled, "The kids stay with me. Kyle gets visitation every other weekend in 2 weeks in the summer. Kyle pays child support equal to 30% of his income, but since his income had dropped, that was about $1,500 a month. Kyle pays compensation for the dissipation of marital assets in the amount of $75,000. Given his financial situation minus $1,000 a month for 75 months. Our house stays with me, but I have to pay Kyle his share of $80,000. I took out a mortgage for that amount. Kyle has to pay my legal fees of $35,000. Kyle was ruined. He sold his car to make the first compensation payment. He moved into a tiny studio in a bad neighborhood. His friends turned on him because the truth about the affairs came out. I made sure of that by sending an anonymous email to 50 of his colleagues and friends. Brittany? Oh, Brittany got a separate dose of karma. Remember I said she found someone else? That someone else was a man named Tyler. Tyler was an ex-con who had served 5 years for fraud. He pretended to be a successful businessman. He wormed his way into Brittany's trust, took all her savings, about $15,000 she'd gotten from selling her car, and disappeared. Brittany was left with debts, no job, no apartment, and a child. She moved in with her mother in Wyoming. I don't know what happened to her after that. I don't care. But the biggest twist came when I thought it was all over. 3 months after the divorce, Derek, Brittany's ex-husband, showed up at my door. The same Derek she'd cheated on with Kyle. Derek was a good guy, just unlucky. He said, "Jessica, I know what you did. I know you set Brittany up with the job in the apartment. And I know you ratted on Kyle to the bar association." My heart skipped a beat. I thought, that's it, now he's going to blackmail me. But Derek said, "I came to say thank you. You did what I should have done but didn't have the guts to do. Brittany ruined my life. Kyle ruined yours. They deserved it. I want you to know, you have an ally. If you ever need anything, call me." Derek and I became friends. Then more than friends. We've been together for 9 months now. He's a truck driver, he has a heart of gold. He loves my kids like his own. Sophie and Ethan adore him. When Kyle found out I was seeing Derek, he went ballistic. He screamed, "You're dating my lover's husband? That's perverse." I said, "Kyle, you slept with my boyfriend's wife. That's perverse. Derek and I are just two people who were betrayed by the people we loved. We have a common cause." Kyle tried to challenge custody, claiming that Derek was an ex-con. No, Derek wasn't an ex-con. Tyler was the ex-con. Derek was clean. The judge dismissed Kyle's motion and ordered him to pay my legal fees for that, too, another $5,000. Now, Reddit, I'm writing this post from my new living room. The house I kept is now fully mine. I paid off the mortgage early, using the money I got back from Kyle's brokerage account. The judge ordered him to give me half of the capital gains, about $60,000. I changed jobs. I'm now a head nurse in the oncology ward. It's hard, but it gives me satisfaction. Derek moved in with me a month ago. We're not rushing to get married. We want to be sure. But he makes my kids happy. He taught Ethan to play soccer. He helps Sophie with math. He fixes the leaky faucet and doesn't complain when I come home late from work. Kyle saw the kids last weekend. He took them to the park. He looked terrible. Thin, balding, it's genetic, but stress accelerated it, his hands were shaking. He tried to talk to me about reconciliation. Again, he said, "Jessica, I still love you. I've been in therapy. I've changed." I looked at him and said, "Kyle, you haven't changed. You just ran out of money and lovers. If tomorrow someone offered you $100,000 and a beautiful woman, you'd betray me again. You are your actions. And your actions are dirt." He cried. Again, I turned around and walked away. A week after that conversation, I got a call from Vanessa, the secretary Kyle had an affair with. She said, "Jessica, I don't know why I'm calling. Maybe to apologize. I was young and stupid. Kyle promised me a promotion. I believed him. He gave me nothing. I quit that job. I want you to know, he said terrible things about you. He called you a boring cow and a medical rat. But now I see who he really is. You deserve better." I said, "Thank you, Vanessa. I accept your apology. Move on and don't repeat your mistakes." I hung up, and for the first time in 2 years, I felt something like peace. But Reddit, I wouldn't be myself if I didn't tell you about the last, most unexpected twist. Remember Haley, the fitness trainer? The 24-year-old? She was the only one who didn't know Kyle was married. Kyle had told her he was divorced. When Haley found out the truth, from Vanessa, who told her everything, she was furious. She turned out to be not just a fitness trainer. She was the daughter of a very influential man, a member of the Denver City Council. Haley's father, Mr. Williams, was enraged when he found out that some lawyer had used his daughter as a mistress by lying to her. He used his connections to put Kyle on a blacklist of every law firm in Denver. Now Kyle can't get a job in his field anywhere. Not even at the shabbiest little practice. He works as a delivery driver for a pizza place. Yes, Reddit. The lawyer who made $250,000 a year now delivers pizza for minimum wage. And his lover Brittany lives with her mom in Wyoming, working as a cashier at Walmart. And his ex-best friend, there was no Chloe in this story, but if we're drawing parallels to your previous request, here's your intertwining, was really just a pawn. I don't feel satisfaction at their suffering. I feel relief, like I pulled out a splinter that had been festering for 14 years. My kids ask why Daddy doesn't live with us anymore. I say, Daddy made a wrong choice, and now he lives separately. But he loves you, and Mommy loves you more than anything in the world. That's enough. Derek has suggested we move to another city, start a new life. I'm thinking about it. Maybe after the kids finish the school year. Maybe we'll buy a house somewhere in Colorado Springs. Away from all this shit. I don't know if Kyle will read this. If so, Kyle, here's a message. You were a good husband for 10 out of 14 years. That's 71%. You got A, C. But A, C, isn't a passing grade when it comes to life. You failed the exam. Good luck with the pizza. To anyone reading this who's going through infidelity, don't be afraid of being alone. Being alone is better than being with someone who makes you feel like a fool. Hire a detective. Copy all the evidence. Don't trust friends who say, "Oh come on, he's a good guy." Good guys don't cheat. And remember, the best revenge isn't ruining someone else's life. It's building your own so well that it hurts them to look at it. I built mine, and I'm only looking forward. Update. Yes, I know my actions, hacking email, recorder and car, were illegal. But Kyle didn't sue me because it would have exposed his own crimes, dissipation, fraud. Sometimes the law is a battlefield, and the one who is better prepared wins. I'll tell the kids the truth when they're 18. Or when they ask. I won't lie, but I also won't poison them against their father. They'll decide for themselves. I don't regret the revenge. Not a day. Not an hour. Not a minute.